Vanishing Shadows. Part 1, The Absence. In a town where time flowed as usual, people began to notice a strange phenomenon. Their shadows disappeared. At first, some blamed it on tricks of the light, weather conditions, fatigue, or hallucinations. But when the vanishing shadows sparked panic, people realized it was more than coincidence. Those whose shadows vanished started to fall ill. Weakness overtook their bodies. Minds grew confused, and their souls seemed detached from the earth. Within days of losing their shadows, the shadowless began to suffer, some dying without any apparent cause. Max, a young journalist, first noticed a phenomenon when his neighbor had no shadow on his doorstep. The neighbor paid no attention, but Max sensed something darker was at play. He began collecting testimonies and evidence, but the deeper he dug, the more he felt himself becoming part of the terrible event. Shadows didn't just disappear, they became something else. Something craving to return to the world of the living. Part 2, The Absence expanded. In the heart of a small American town, nestled between forgotten highways and dense forests, the phenomenon of vanishing shadows spread like wildfire. It began subtly, an absent silhouette here, a missing outline there. At first, locals shrugged it off as tricks of the light, faulty street lamps, or mere fatigue. But as more shadows disappeared without explanation, an unshakable dread took hold. Those who lost their shadows grew pale and weak, their minds clouded by an inexplicable fog. Friends and family watched helplessly as their loved ones faded, a slow erosion of their very essence. Max, a young investigative reporter, noticed the first anomaly when his neighbor's shadow failed to appear in the afternoon sun. The neighbor dismissed the observation, but Max sensed a darker truth lurking beneath the surface. He began piecing together scattered reports, testimonials filled with fear and confusion. Yet, the deeper he delved, the more he realized that the missing shadows were not just lost. They were transforming, becoming something far more sinister, entities hungering to cross back into the world of the living. The town, gripped by fear, remained unaware of the creeping horror growing just beyond perception, where shadows twisted and whispered secrets no one dared to hear. Part 3, Absorption. Night fell over the town, its darkness thicker than ever before. Streets emptied, windows were covered with heavy curtains, as if people feared even the slightest light. Max felt time slipping away. Each day, more shadows vanished, and with them, the lives of their owners. The town was enveloped in silence, broken only by the distant ringing of bells echoing through empty corridors. In a small office, Max studied surveillance footage on one tape. He saw his acquaintance's shadow slowly drifting away from the body, like a living organism detaching from its host. He realized shadows didn't simply disappear. They detached, gaining life of their own. Their purpose remained unknown, but it felt like the beginning of something catastrophic. Max began researching old legends and local folklore. He learned about an ancient cult that worshipped the Shadow Devourer, an entity feeding on fears and life force, stealing shadows and souls. Time was running out, and the town stood on the brink of total collapse. Max knew he had to act fast, because every loss was a step closer to the end. Part 4, The Threshold Between Worlds. Max could no longer stand aside. Armed with everything he learned, he decided to go to where the shadow disappearances began, the old, long-abandoned part town. The streets were deserted, the buildings crumbling, forgotten by time and people. But the atmosphere was charged with invisible tension, and the air seemed heavier with every step. Max felt he was crossing a boundary, not just between neighborhoods, but between worlds, the real and the otherworldly. Shadows were absolutely absent here, which meant that whatever consumed them was nearby. In the darkness, he saw movement, shadows, detached from bodies, gathering into a vast dark mass, like a cloud slowly spreading and swallowing everything in its path. Max understood that this mass was the embodiment of the Shadow Devourer, feeding on fear and loss. To stop it, he had to face his own fears and confront the darkness inside himself. Only then would there be a chance to bring shadows and life back to the town. Part 5, Light in the Darkness. Max stood on the edge of two worlds, where the fullness of darkness seemed boundless, and every step echoed his deepest fears. His body trembled, but his mind was focused. This battle was not external, but internal. Gradually, he realized that the Devourer fed not on shadows alone, but on the darkest corners of the soul, doubts, pain, guilt. Rejecting past suffering, Max began to see light even in the deepest darkness. His resolve became a shield, and his belief in himself a sword against the endless gloom. With a focused heart, he charged into the growing mass and began fighting for every shadow, every living soul. Shadows started returning to their owners, filling the town with life and hope. Although the Devourer retreated, Max knew this battle was only the beginning. Darkness would always return, and only one who fights their own shadow can stop it. Part 6, After the Storm. Days slowly returned to their usual rhythm, but the town was never the same. People cautiously stepped outside, glancing at their shadows, as if to verify they were still theirs. Max became a local legend. People saw him not just as a reporter, but as the one who stood up for the town in its darkest hour. Yet he knew peace was temporary. The internal wounds of darkness left were often invisible but deep. Sometimes the disappearance of shadows was only the beginning. The next step could be the loss of souls. Max started building a community. People who had survived shadow disappearances and were ready to fight not only the vanished shadows, but also the fears living in hearts. Their struggle was a fight for the future, because in a world where even shadows can disappear, true light is born from willpower and courage. Part 7, Shadows of the Past. Even after defeating the Devourer, Max could find no peace. Every day he was haunted by hallucinations, images of those who lost their shadows, those who vanished without a trace. They silently called him, reminding him of the weight of guilt. He later learned that the disappearance of shadows was not an accident. It was a signal. Shadows were not mere reflections of the soul, but talismans holding the boundary between the living world and the realm of shadows. When this boundary weakens, creatures living in the darkness between worlds slip through. These beings did not just seek energy. They wanted to return, taking all life with them. Max realized the fight was just beginning. He started gathering survivors of shadow disappearance, trying to unite them for the upcoming battle. One of them was Eli, a man with mysterious past, knowledgeable about ancient rituals, and able to see shadows from another world. Together, they devised a plan to find the source of the rupture between worlds and close it forever. But this meant venturing where reality thinned and death and life intertwined. Part 8, Deepening Darkness. Max and Eli ventured into abandoned districts where the rift between worlds was most felt. Time dragged slowly there, and the air was thick with bone-chilling cold. With every step, the world around seemed to grow lighter, as if they were walking the edge of an abyss. In these zones, shadows didn't just vanish. They came alive, taking shape and will. Max saw silhouettes floating in the air, sometimes approaching as if seeking contact. But any approach brought hellish cold and voices from the past whispering fears. Eli explained these shadows were fragments of broken souls caught in time and space. Their pain the energy the Devourer fed upon. To stop the spread of darkness, they needed not only to find and close the rift, but also to help these souls find peace. During one search, they found an ancient amulet, a symbol, Eli said, that could strengthen the boundary between worlds, but its power could be dangerous to the bearer. Max felt was their chance, but also a trap. Darkness tested him both externally and internally. Part 9, Trial by Light. Since Max grasped the amulet, something changed. The power pulsing within was both cold and alive, like the very essence of the world it came from. Every breath felt charged with new energy, but also unknown danger. Dreams began vivid and unclear, throwing him into the past, moments of loss and betrayal. They tormented him, exhausting him, forcing him to seek answers not only in the outside world, but deep within his own soul. Meanwhile, new disappearances emerged, not only shadows, but people. No one knew where they went, but witnesses spoke of fog enveloping houses at night and voices luring them in. Max realized it was a consequence of his actions with the amulet. He felt the boundary between worlds thinning, the darkness ready to burst forth. Eli warned the amulet's power could save the town, but if Max lost control, it could mean the end not just for them, but for the entire world. Max had to find the strength to fight not only external threats, but his own demons. Part 10, The Final Frontier. Max felt the moment of ultimate change approaching. The amulet he carried began to glow brightly at night, as if responding to the shadows spreading across the town. Streets emptied, the air thickened with tension. People hid indoors, afraid even to venture out in daylight. Shadows no longer vanished. They attacked, becoming aggressive and dangerous. Max and Eli realized the Devourer had found a way to increase its power, moving from passive consumption to active hunting. In the final battle on the ruins of the old bridge, the original rift point, Max used the amulet to summon a light strong enough to restore the boundary. Light and shadows clashed in a brutal dance, tearing the air and earth around them. Max felt darkness trying to invade him, but he stood firm, now knowing light exists not only outside but in the heart of every person. With his last strength, he sealed the rift, banishing the Devourer back into the shadows it came from. The town slowly began to recover. Shadows returned to their places, and people to the streets. Max knew the war with darkness wasn't over, but this day proved that even in the deepest shadow, there's a light that never goes out. Part 11, New Enemies. Months passed after the bridge battle, and the city slowly returned to normal. But peace was deceptive. Darkness left traces not only on the streets, but also in people's hearts. Max felt anew. His dreams deepened, and an invisible presence lingered even during the day. Strange apparitions appeared, silhouettes watching, whispers in silence. Eli warned, "These are not remnants of the Devourer. Others have come to exploit the rift between worlds for their own ends." Mysterious newcomers arrived, figures in dark cloaks, quietly gathering information on recent events. Their influence was felt everywhere. Max and Eli realized their fight was no longer just against darkness, but those who manipulated it. Part 12, Dawn of a New Era. To face the new threat, Max began uniting people with unusual abilities. Those who survived contact with shadows and gained power to resist darkness. They formed an alliance, the Lightbearers, a stronghold against the unknown enemy. But power was not always a blessing. New members wrestled with inner demons. Darkness lurked in every shadow. Max knew that to win, they must not only fight outwardly but learn to accept themselves and their fears. As tensions rose, secrets of the past linking the new enemies to the city began to unravel. Part 13, Awakening Shadows of the Past. The search led Max and the Lightbearers to an ancient underground chamber beneath the city. There they found old writings and symbols revealing centuries-long battles between light and darkness. The city had been chosen as a balance point, and the rift was part of an ancient ritual maintaining this balance. Now the ritual was broken, darkness spread, and the veil between worlds thinned. Max sensed that behind this stood not only dark entities, but those who once pledged to protect the city, but betrayed it. Part 14, The Temptation of Darkness. The Lightbearers faced a test. A being appeared offering power and immortality in exchange for abandoning the fight. Some in the Alliance succumbed to temptation, doubting their mission and faith in the light. Max fought to remind them of responsibility and hope, but doubt spread like poison. Darkness knows weak spots and now used them to divide and weaken resistance. Part 15, The Fire of Unity. After many losses and defeats, Max united those who remained loyal to the light. They began a ritual to restore balance that could close the rift and strengthen the city's defenses. It was the most dangerous battle, against darkness, doubt, and betrayal. The Lightbearers gave everything to protect what was left of their world. Though darkness retreated, its traces remained in their souls, reminding them that light is a choice requiring constant struggle.